is the 6:30 p.m. Taconic and Green Regional School District Board meeting on Tuesday, March 11th. And this is our reorganization meeting, so this is the only meeting of the year that I begin. So thank you all for attending, and I will call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Melanie?
I will move to approve the agenda.
Ben?
I don't know, it's now the point where I
Now
make
is the point.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to amend the agenda.
Second.
Okay.
So,
Do you want to take a vote on suspending the rules?
Did we vote on it previous?
We didn't get a second on the approval of the,
I
okay.
think we did.
No, Melanie,
Don't need one.
okay, so Melanie voted to, she made a motion to approve the agenda, nobody seconded it, and Ben made a motion to amend the agenda, which Dick seconded.
I think his motion was to suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules, right.
For the purposes of making an addition.
yes.
Well, it didn't say the, yes. Okay, so that was seconded. So, do you want to discuss the reason why?
Usually
Or
there's a
suspend
reason
it?
given.
Yes.
Yes, so the reason is, I shared an email earlier in this today, but the reason would be to have a discussion prior to proceeding with the nomination of board officers, to have a discussion about our current situation, the opportunities and challenges of the coming years, and what we would want and need for board officers in the coming year. So that would be the reason. So prior to 3A in the agenda would be a discussion about the and opportunities for board officers.
All right, any further discussion on that? All in favor of suspending the rules to add this discussion to the agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
That's all right, go ahead.
Abstentions? Okay. Okay, now I take a motion to approve the agenda as written with the amendment.
Randy, I'd just like to point out, we've never actually had motions to approve the agenda.
That is true, but we can.
She's chairing it. I believe the
Okay,
next
you don't want to
motion
approve
should
the
be to
I'm-
add something to the agenda. We voted just a moment ago to suspend the rules, and it appears to have passed, although that wasn't ruled on. And
Yes, it does.
the next motion should be, and I defer to Ben, to add.
So the next motion would be to add this item specifically. Thank you for the process clarification.
Yeah, for everyone. It's a good thing I do this once a year.
So, the official, the language that would be, I moved that before proceeding with the nomination of the board officers, the board engage in a discussion to identify and articulate the needs and expectations for the roles in the coming year, including the key qualities, skills, and leadership attributes that will best serve the board and our school community during this particular time.
Second.
Okay. Ben made the motion, John seconded it. Any discussion about adding this item to the agenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Are you ready to move on?
Mhm.
Public comment. Anybody from the public, will start here in the room. Anybody in the room care to make public comment? Okay, anybody online care to make a comment? Okay. All right, so now we will move on to what is now new agenda item 3A, which is to have a board discussion to identify and articulate the needs and expectations for the roles in the coming year, including the key qualities, skills, and leadership attributes that will best serve the board and school community during this time. I guess, I wonder if it makes sense, I would propose that we go through those items and go through the key qualifications, then the skills and the leadership attributes, and then have a discussion about them. Does that sound reasonable to the board? Okay. All right. As we look ahead with everything going on, what are some key qualities you look for in leadership on this board? I'll take notes, best of my ability. Harb.
For chair and vice chair, I think you want to look very carefully at policy governance policy. I believe it's 4.4, which states the duties of the chair. And obviously, if the chair isn't available, the vice chair has to do that.
Mm-hmm. David?
I would think that facilitation skills and process skills are really important at this stage, as we're working through a lot of different things to try to hear all the sides and reach a consensus before the vote. And I would also build on a lot of the traditions that were established by Herb and the previous executive team because of the adherence to policy governance and the formalities. You don't have to be quite so formal, but the formalities of making sure that we respect each other and listen to each other.
Dick?
I think it's particularly important that everybody in their own space and in their own way be given an opportunity to weigh in on issues. That includes all board members, and it also includes members of the public. And there will be, as there always are, differences of opinion. The idea of the group of leaders is to make sure that everybody is heard and that eventually we drive towards a consensus by understanding that not all people will agree, but at the same time have important points to make, and that those points need to be listened to very carefully, because we are a group of individuals who bring different aspects of our careers and our personalities to the table. And I think it's particularly important that that becomes an agenda along with the most important agenda, that all of our kids are our kids, and that's our primary purpose.
Herb?
As I mentioned to Ben before we met, I think one thing you want to bear in mind is that neither the chair nor the vice chair necessarily have to be the board's spokesman on every single issue they want to take a public stand on. And neither the chair, in my opinion, nor the vice chair need to be necessarily the idea people. The job of the chair is to run the business of the board efficiently and to do what Dick just mentioned. It's not necessarily to think of the solution to the education funding crisis. And I can conceive of a situation in the next couple of years where if it happens while Madison's still on the board, there might be something that we want her to go to talk to the legislature about as our representative, for example, even though we can't elect her chair.
Okay, anybody else, especially those we have not heard from yet, have anything to contribute? Some of these are expanding into other areas, but we're still kind of on key qualities.
I'd like to hear from Ben or John, since they floated this idea in the first place.
Yeah, I think I would like to, it's difficult in policy governance to know, how much space we have to look for creative solutions as a board, right? Is that our job to, generate creative possible solutions to different problems? But I personally, I might be alone on this, would like to see a way for us to kind of, I guess within the bounds of Robert's rules, to use our time together to generate some possible solutions, to how we work in a meeting. I think it's great when we're all together on the table, but, could we use different structures, different ways, as you're saying, David, about facilitation, different ways to facilitate creative thinking, and maybe help us to approach ideas a little bit differently.
So I'm sorry, what's the key quality of the
I think
chair or
it's just,
vice chair that
I think
you're looking?
facilitating, facilitating and leveraging, innovation, creative thinking as a board, looking for solutions.
So strong facilitation skills,
Yeah.
but also creative?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can weigh in on trying to just focus on key qualities. I do think facilitation is probably the top thing that we need from a chair. And I think I posed this and put this out there because I just feel like Herb has been such a presence for this board for so many years, and we've just, ever since I've been on the board, it's been the same team that's been with her, working with her, setting agendas and leading the group. And anytime we have a substantial change, I think it's worth thinking about what is going to be all of a sudden missing when, unfortunately, Herb moves and he's no longer sitting in the room. Like there are some skills that he has and experience that he has that are going to be absent, that we will need to fill in some way or find other ways to put in. But I think we've also just come to rely on and become sort of comfortable with the way he runs meetings, and the way that we interact following his leadership style. And it's an opportunity for us to just think about, how it could be different. And so I think facilitation skills for me is a key quality that is definitely there, but there's also an ability to keep a 10,000 foot perspective, to be the one that helps the whole board maintain perspective when we get drawn into issues. And I think that's really important, because if we do get passionate about something and we get sucked into it, that there has to be someone at the leadership level who can maintain that broader perspective of why we're doing, what's our actual scope that we can engage in as a board, what's our area of influence, what's our responsibility, and knows policy really well. So.
Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet who would like the opportunity to say something before we hear from folks again? Jessica?
I would only add, because it's I think it's tangential to what Ben said, but the idea of prioritization, the ability to keep us focused, is going to be really important. So, especially with everything coming up. So I think I'd almost say ruthless prioritization if I were at the office.
Go ahead, Herb.
And that ties into something I was going to say, which is that one of the things that the three officers have been doing in preparing the agendas is to try to make sure, number one, that the proposed items actually will fit in the agenda, and number two, I can't quite see how to explain this, to make sure that they are described sufficiently so somebody from the outside has some idea of what the item is about. And part of that is also identifying which things are action items, and that gets to be pretty important, because if it's not an action item, the only way we can vote on it is by suspending the rules, And we shouldn't really have to suspend the rules very often. We should anticipate these action items. And sometimes it's simply a matter of looking at the proposed agenda and realizing, hey, this item is going to call for a vote, so we better identify it as an action item. Something that everyone wants to think about is that there's nothing set in stone about the way we've been preparing the agendas for the last 8 years. We've been doing it by a meeting of the chair, the vice chair, the clerk, and the superintendent. No rule says we have to do it that way, no statute says we have to do it that way. It just has seemed to work out pretty well. When I first became chair, I wanted to broaden the way it had been done in UD 23, where it was just the chair and the superintendent. I thought we should add more people with a 15-member board. But a new slate of officers could decide to do it a different way or not to do it at all.
Melanie?
I will add that in 4.4.1.a, it actually does lay out that in concert with the superintendent, the vice chair, the clerk and the chair will plan meeting agendas.
Really, it's in there, huh?
Yep.
Okay, so just in an effort to move us along, because
Yes.
we've got a lot to do tonight,
Can I
let's
just add
just,
one more final thing?
well, we're gonna have an opportunity to add as many more as you want, but let's just, leadership, attributes, skills, qualifications, what are things you think that a member of the leadership team in this board should have?
Oh, yeah, just to really get feedback, solicit feedback in different ways, and just like not be, be unemotional about feedback. And again, that's not a dig at you. Herb, you've been great at accepting feedback. I don't want to say because I'm raising something. That's a dig at you. You've been good at that. But new chair, just like really get after getting good feedback and acting on it, and have a posture of continuous improvement from that feedback.
Melanie?
I actually kind of want to ask a question, if that's okay. I, in going through the chair's role, I don't see anything specifying the role of the vice chair or the clerk. I'm wondering if that's worth addressing. I don't know if you were going to address that separately or in concert.
I
Leadership
had no
attributes.
plan
Okay.
of discussing any, this is not for any one position.
Right.
I was encompassing all three in this, so, Herb?
I know the statute says we have to have a clerk, that's all I believe it says the clerk, I think the statute says the clerk is in charge of the records, but I think that's all it says about a clerk. I would say that one really important function of the clerk that I've been kind of usurping for the last 8 years is to make sure the minutes are absolutely accurate, because there are times when you have to go back 1 or 2 years to see, okay, what did we decide about that? And if the minutes aren't clear about what we did, that's a problem.
Right.
Any other leadership attributes that folks would like to put out for the board to think about and consider? Or anything that I guess that's out there that you might not necessarily agree with and that the board should talk about? Mel?
I'll just add transparency as much as possible. And that kind of goes back to making sure that, with the public and the board, that all information is given so that when we have deliberations, we are looking at all perspectives and not just one. Not that we do that. I'm just saying, I do think transparency, especially for the public, is important whenever possible.
And I think communication skills was high on my list, but I think also Herb made a really good point that the chair or the vice chair or the clerk doesn't necessarily have to be the point person for communication, but they do have to be on top of our communications and make sure that we're doing an effective job at communicating with our stakeholders, with the legislature, with sort of like there are a bunch of different things that are kind of be coming our way as we talk about school reconfiguration, and the state's talking about state ed reconfiguration, and we're going to need a variety of different communications, and I think we have been addressing that as a board. It's been a priority, but I think our leadership in the next couple of years, that's going to need to be something that's front of mind. So And again, we won't have a lawyer to necessarily be proving all of our legal statements, so that may be something that we have to pay particular attention to.
Okay, any other last minute comments? Right. Close the discussion, okay? All right, so now we're going to move on to the election of the chair. So I will take nominations for Taconic and Green Board Chair. David?
I'd like to nominate Melanie Virgilio.
Okay.
Second,
Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay. Okay, any other nominations? Okay.
Sorry, who seconded that? Can you tell me who seconded that?
Herb seconded it, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion to, for Mel Virgilio to be Taconic and Green Board Chair?
You need a motion?
Well, I do, I just took nominations, right?
I think the next thing you do is do the election.
Even without a motion?
I think the nomination closes.
Yeah.
Nomination closes.
Is there a discussion?
I was asking about,
No.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
you can ask questions.
okay,
About the process.
discussion.
If the nominations are closed,
Ask Al a question?
Yeah.
Are you, now, would you be able to, you know, being from Sunderland, as the chair, put your personal, any personal reservations you have about, you know, potential Sunderland closing, would you be able to put that aside as chair and not take a, you know, I see a chair, and we didn't mention this in the qualifications, but I see a chair as, you know, riding the middle here and not, you know, as a facilitator and not pushing their own personal agenda to a degree. Would you be able to put your personal thoughts or feelings, whatever it may be, and as a person from Sunderland, put that aside and to be fairly objective in that matter?
Yeah, I kind of feel that all of us are in a position where anytime any of our schools are at risk, and if we have to have a chair that isn't representing any town, I don't know how we would function. And kind of on top of that, all of our kids are all of our kids, I think, is a really important concept from day one. I know that I can do that, and I would also look to the rest of the board to recognize that for the rest of the board, they also have to consider all our kids. So while I am the representative that lives in Sunderland, I would expect that everyone at this table is also going to be looking out for Sunderland in the same way that I would, so that I could facilitate without having to, or feeling the need to bring up something because it wasn't addressed or concerned, or there was no concern for it by the rest of the board.
I just want to run a footnote here to the public. I have no inclination to say that's proposed, Sunderland's closing. I'm just saying as a, it's been proposed before. Don't take that the wrong way.
Herb?
And I think those of you who have been on the board since it began, as Melanie has and as I have, if you think back over the years, I think Melanie's demonstrated that her answer is correct, just by the way she's been handling things over the last 8 years or so. I'd also like to point out that typically the chair doesn't vote.
Right.
Can I say something?
Chelsea?
Thanks. Seeing as how I'm new, I've been watching for the last year, and I would agree that I think Melanie's already demonstrated that she does that through her conversations and what's been discussed.
Okay, we ready to close discussion? All right, all in favor of Melanie Virgilio to be Taconic and Green Chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstentions? All right, Mel Virgilio, Chair, Taconic and Green. I am off the hook. Turning this over to you.
Thank you, David. So now we are on to elect the vice chair, and I would be happy to take any nominations for vice chair. David?
I mean, I don't have to be the one talking, but I will nominate Dick Dale.
Any other nominations for vice chair? I'm not hearing any other nominations, so on that, we'll close the nomination. And all in favor of Dick Dale as the vice chair for the Taconic Green, please recognize by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Great.
I'm sorry, did we have a seconder on that nomination?
We did not, I don't think you need a
You don't really
seconder.
need one.
No?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Congratulations. Dick. This is gonna be weird, everybody sitting around, this is very different. I'll take nominations to elect the clerk for the Taconic Green.
I move to nominate David Chandler.
Thank you, Dick. Are there any other nominations on the floor? Seeing none, I will close nominations. All in favor of David Chandler as clerk for the Taconic Green, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Congratulations, David.
Congratulations, David. Elect BRSU board representatives. Traditionally, who has been, can I ask, who has been the representative that has been?
I was Jim Salzgiver, David Chandler, myself, Lindsay are the remaining members of continuing members. There is one opening at this particular point with the resignation of Deb. So I don't know.
Alex.
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 She resigned before Alex came on. Somebody needs to wish to be nominated as well, assuming that each of us want to serve again.
Right, I would say if anyone else wants to be on the BRSU, they should say so, and then we can figure it out.
Right. It's a very important board in the sense that it is the oversight board for the entire supervisory union. It is the only board that evaluates formally the superintendent. Its biggest concerns are to manage the entire supervisory union and especially pass the budgets with respect to especially special education and also budgets where the charges are made throughout the entire district, mostly borne by the Taconic and Green.
The monthly meeting? Is it monthly meeting?
It's sometimes a little more, depends on what has to be done, but it is a very important meeting. Taconic and Green have 5 representatives. 3 come from Medowee and 1 from Windham.
Oh,
It doesn't meet every month, though.
Yeah, which
there-
is this a regular day of the week?
Monday.
It is Mondays, the end of the month, the last Monday of the month.
There's an organizational meeting 2 Mondays from now.
Which time?
6:30, and it meets here.
might we presume you'd be interested in the role, John?
Yeah, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I've never done it before, so.
Melanie, I'll throw my hat in there too.
Okay. So, let's see. If we were to call for a vote on this, since we have more nominees, I guess maybe what we should do is, does anybody want to make a motion for maybe 4 representatives, and then we do a paper ballot for the open seat? How do you feel about that, on the board?
That could be done, but there are 2 people that have expressed interest. I know I have really enjoyed the BRSU. I think David has as well. I think Lindsay has as well. And
Definitely.
Jim has been our exalted grand poobah forever. And and if he ever resigned, the BRSU is collapsing. So he can't quit.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I was just stepping up because I didn't think anyone else could do it. I'm okay with trying.
Oh, that's, and if you want it, you can totally have it, I just thought.
No, you have it.
Sorry.
No, I'm good with whatever, but it's,
Well,
I
you
got
can-
plenty to do.
Yeah, if you want it, you can have it. We don't need to make it more comfortable, sorry.
No, it's not uncomfortable. You got it. Kelsey's got it.
Oh, no.
Would anybody like to make a motion to recommend 5 people
I
to this
recommend
board?
5 who remain as interested at this particular point.
You want to recommend the 4?
No.
That remain?
5.
Jim, David,
David,
Lindsay,
Kelsey.
and Kelsey.
Okay. Yes?
That-
Okay. Any other nominations, I guess? No nominations closed.
That's actually, it is elected, but
Yeah. All those in favor of Jim, David, Lindsay, Dick, and Kelsey, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes.
the-
Congratulations.
welcome to another meeting.
Exactly.
A bargaining group needs to begin operating very soon. David and I have been the representatives for the last 4 negotiations that are labor-related. Julie Mock is the representative from Medowee. I think we have created a climate of trust and win-win throughout our negotiations. I would like to serve again, unless David doesn't, and then I don't want to.
I would like to serve again as well.
So we'll read Shane agenda item E, which might be F now. Appointing bargaining council representatives. Dick and David will say if they're interested. Do you want to, somebody make a recommendation first, and we can discuss it. Herb?
Well, I would like to nominate David and Dick for those positions.
Any other nominations? Closed? Great, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The next committee is the Community Engagement Committee, which is now going to be even more important. Suzanne is a member of it. Melanie is a member of it. Herb is chair of it, may not last very long as chair or member. Lindsay is a member of it. Drawing a blank as to the last.
Suzanne.
I'm on it too.
Yeah, right.
Jessica?
And anybody else who would like to be?
Anybody can do it, or?
Yeah, anybody can be a part of the
And
committee.
this is just like
As
whenever
long as you don't have quorum.
you want, like
Would-
whenever it's
Right.
called upon.
These committees need to have a specific task assigned to them by the board. They are a small enough group to have forthright pose for them. And anybody want to add to that agenda?
And all the committees
Yeah,
are
Debbie.
ad hoc.
Do you want to be, are you interested in continuing until you leave, since you were part of that committee?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that, but I think that you want to appoint at least maybe one more person. If you're going to appoint it now, I'd suggest one more than you had before, because I'm going to be history in a month or two.
Right, as long as we don't have a quorum.
There's 5 on now, so.
Right. So anybody that's interested, I guess, raise your hand, and we can record it and agree to appoint.
Suzanne's not here, so.
Right.
She said yes, though. I connected with her.
Suzanne.
I'd be interested once,
Mhm.
not, I don't need to rush in.
You're
I
interested
think
still?
you're okay.
And then Jessica got put on it last meeting.
She
I did, but this is the reorganization.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
We have to reorganize for this year.
Sorry.
And Lindsay? And I previously was on it. 8, 4, 5. And I'll be happy to continue that. So as it stands, it would be Suzanne, Kelsey, Jessica, Lindsay, and Mel, and then Bob. And Randy, you often attended those,
Yes.
right?
Bob doesn't count as a quorum.
Correct.
Right. Neither do I.
Do we need to vote on an appointment? I don't think so, right?
Yeah, I don't have to.
Great, so policy committee
The
members.
policy committee has been composed of me, Jeff Wilson, and for a long, valuable length of time, Deb, but because
And
she's no
Suzanne.
longer on the board, and Suzanne has also been a member. It doesn't meet very often. We have 4 items that are left over from February.
Yeah.
It's not an onerous committee, and but it is vital that we have somebody on it who can express revamped policies in the correct linguistic format.
Dick, I'm gonna assume that you're still interested in being a part of that.
Well, I'm not very articulate with respect to the correct format, but
Suzanne's also.
I make proposals.
Okay. Jeff, do we know?
Did not hear from Jeff on it.
Okay.
He's been willing to consider it because we only meet as necessary,
Okay.
and
So-
usually for less than an hour.
So I will say that we will, I mean, is it safe to appoint him unless he decides to resign from the appointment? Is there anyone else that would like to be part of that policy engagement, policy committee?
How about,
Let's hope Jeff does it. Yeah.
I'd just like to urge Ben to think about it.
If Jeff doesn't want to do it, and if you need somebody else, I can join that.
All right, great. Authorize chair to sign previously approved contracts.
that's a traditional routine. Oh, sorry.
Dick, would you like to speak to that?
We're trying to move it along. This is a traditional policy, and it is necessary in order to make things legal going forward.
Do you need
Do I
a
have a
motion?
motion?
Yes,
I'll move that.
Second.
So David moves,
Authorize the chair to sign previously approved contracts.
and Don and Herb seconded that. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, passes. Authorize superintendent to sign previously approved contracts.
again, a traditional routine.
Dick, would you like to speak to that?
Sorry.
You skip
We used to try and move
It's
this.
okay, we'll come back up to it.
Which one did I skip?
previously approved.
Oh, current
contracts.
Can I go back to that? Okay, fine. Let's go to authorize chair to sign previously approved correspondence.
So moved.
Second.
That was Dick Dale and Herb. Don, I'm just gonna say these out loud for you so that you, just in case you can't see. Do I have a motion?
The,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, discussion. Would you like to speak to it?
No,
Okay. Then, all in favor of authorizing the chair to sign previously approved correspondence, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Authorize superintendent to sign previously approved contracts. Do I have a motion? Dick?
he wants to move it, I'll second it.
Great, Herb
Okay.
will move that, and Dick will second it, and any discussion? None? Okay. All in favor of authorizing the chair to sign previously approved contracts? Please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Superintendent.
Superintendent.
Thank you,
Yeah.
superintendent. I'm gonna space out my agenda next time with like double spaces in between, so I can keep track a little better. Make sure that I got that done. Approved truant officer.
I move to appoint Tim Oliver, who has been in the position and done a great job in that position.
Thank you, Dick. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jessica. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving truant officer Tim Oliver, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Next is to designate agenda posting locations with a suggestion of school and post office. Can I get a motion? Dick would like to make the motion. Herb, can I assume that's a second?
Yeah, but,
And any discussion?
I would add,
Yes.
okay, I would add is that with a lot of discussion back in the summer, we agreed to use community forums. We also agreed to post in other locations by different communities so that the people would be well aware of what's going on. And the designation idea is only the required to. The others were voted on by us back a month and a half or 2 months ago.
Herb,
I would like to amend post office to state the same as we did last year. Post offices serving the district.
Okay,
did you,
that's fine, I agree.
okay. Do we feel like we need to put in there the community forum
No,
as well?
that's an addition that
That's it, right, okay,
should be a part of the minutes, but
great,
it's not the required ones.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. A motion to designate our newspaper.
I move to designate the Banner as the official paper, but we have discussed as a board of thinking about Vermont and Chester and other newspapers that do reach out to other areas, especially the mountain areas. The Banner seems to be also who publishes the Manchester Journal. So if it gets there, it generally gets in the Manchester Journal.
I second the motion to designate the Banner.
Thank you, Herb. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Motion to reauthorize superintendent to sign financial orders.
This is a traditional,
Should go to your call.
Would you like to make the motion,
I
Dick?
didn't wait for you.
You'll get used to it.
I move we reauthorize the superintendent to sign
Okay.
financial orders.
Anybody would like to second that?
I do.
Great, Dick, discussion. Dick, would you like to speak?
This is necessary in order to keep ourselves in solvent, and the superintendent needs to be able to sign those financial orders and contracts and lots of other things.
Any other discussion on that? No. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. The next item is to establish stipend payment date. Would somebody like to make a motion establishing that date?
I move that the date be established in February.
Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second
Kelsey can second that one. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, Lindsay.
How do we go about maybe discussing an increase in the stipend? So they've been on here like 7 years, it's been the same, so.
It generally doesn't get, in most boards, increased very often, but if you'd like to have a discussion.
Well, I just don't know how to,
I would-
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah,
when you're
maybe.
developing the budget,
It's part of the budget.
yes.
Okay.
Because it's budgeted, so.
So like when you first get the budget, that's when we should
When
discuss it?
when you're reviewing the budget that's proposed, or when we are building the budget, or like, anytime in the fall, somebody can request that we do that
September, October.
in November.
When we get to the work plan, maybe we'll add that to the work We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Herb?
I'm trying to remember, is that one of the things that we still vote on the floor annually?
No.
We did not this year.
Yeah.
We may have voted at the very beginning on the floor when we first
Yeah, we did.
established,
But
but not since.
it's like Congress raising their salaries.
We could just do it, you mean?
Well, they do it and then they repeal it.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of establishing the stipend payment as February, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody abstaining? Nope. All right, passes. Everyone should have in their agenda packet of board members' code of ethics to sign. I would assume you want that
I
by the
do.
end of the night.
I would love it by
Do
the
you
end
have
of the
any
night.
extra?
Send it
Your
your
extra
packet.
packet?
Yes. I have a packet here, and then somebody can have mine, because
And Randy, could you always just go, could we copy some of the other guys if we needed to?
yeah, we can.
If you want to sign again,
We can have somebody else do it.
you can.
I think you're okay,
Do you
Jess.
need one too? Yeah, if you want.
I can get somebody else to,
Okay.
we can grab it, we'll get a copy.
And would you like Jim and Deb to submit electronically or?
Yep,
get them?
Jim and,
Oh, you have
I'm
one?
good, I'm sorry.
Oh, never mind. Jim and
Oh,
Deb,
there,
if you
yeah.
guys will submit electronically if you can, that would be great.
swing it by the office.
Take a look.
Okay.
I'm passing these down.
Sure. I didn't sign mine, I'll do it.
Madam Chair, the
Yeah.
proposed dates are on page 5. I would look through them and don't see any conflict with a religious holiday. But I haven't checked the Muslim holidays.
Okay. Would you like to move
I could
the
and
approval
would
of the proposed meeting dates, which are on page 5?
and do.
Great. Motion by Dick Dale, anybody want to second that?
Second.
Herb, thank you. Any further discussion on the proposed dates? You can find on packet page 5.
Can I just ask a question about this board retreat?
Sure.
Is it, I'm assuming we do it nearby? We're not
Yes.
going far? Okay, thanks. So I just, you know. I just want to confirm.
Yes,
Kelsey,
but
we've had it here, we've had it at other places locally, and it's typically like a full day retreat essentially.
and since I know something about being in charge at Dorset of ice cream distribution, last year we had a wonderful ice cream.
That's really good.
No pressure.
I'll see what I can do. I can't make promises, no promises.
Oh, you're putting it on Kelsey?
Oh my God.
She's in charge of Dorset, but
All those, any more discussion, I guess, and on this, on the approved, proposed meeting dates? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? So it also passes. Review board goals. This is, Kelsey, I believe is the time in our meeting where we kind of take a moment, right, to review our board goals. And if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, now might be the time to discuss it. Generally, it's just review. We have at times had them read aloud, I think we've done away with that, but if for any reason we feel like we might want to reinstitute that, we certainly could be able to, depending on our meetings. And how heavily they may be attended, it might be a helpful reminder. Consent agenda, can I get a motion to pass a consent agenda? And a second, that was Dick, Don,
Second.
and Ben, seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, all in favor
Aye.
of approving the consent agenda? Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? And the consent agenda passes. Number 6, we have a presentation, I believe, for the ends policy with some school goals update, and Skylar's this yours?
It is.
Great.
So we keep adjusting a little bit. Thank you for the feedback. So I will share my screen and we will turn it over to Skylar, and I think you're going to do the bulk of the presentation, and then principals are all here. We could do a quick introduction. Well, if you don't know, this is Skylar LeBombard, our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. We've got Johanna Wiskowski-Doak. I've never done it before. Do other people do that, or is it just me? Just me. It's just my night tonight.
It trips everybody up.
Wiskowski-Doak, and she is the principal at the Floodbrook School up in Londonderry. Jen Turner is next to her, and principal of Sunderland Elementary School. Carolyn Perillo, principal of Courier Memorial School. Rosanna Moran, principal of Dorset School, and Harrison Schulman just stepped out for a moment. He's the principal of Manchester Elementary Middle School. So I will share my screen, and we will get started. Now you're telling me that I can start switching. I see. Okay.
Okay, I know, first of all, I'll apologize for any kind of size issue presenting in the room, because when we share it online, it tends to make things a little bit smaller, because it would be lovely if we could have that big giant screen filled. So I will help interpret kind of some numbers. That being said, our principals were in attendance at Courier Memorial School in the fall, where we shared each individual school goal. It was kind of a lot of data. There's a lot of nomenclature involved in education. So this time around, I'm going to try to keep it relatively straightforward, kind of data light, and look more at actualizing the ends policies that you all have put into place. So if you recall, in the fall, we had talked about continued resource implementation over the last few years. We'll get to the next slide shortly. We've implemented a whole bunch of comprehensive programming for our curriculum. Part of that was as a result of interdistrict choice, the fact that some of our schools only have a singular teacher at a grade level or a singular teacher teaching 2 grade levels. There's not a lot of opportunity for collegiality between teachers when they're a singleton. So by providing baseline level resources, it allows them the opportunity to discuss with colleagues across schools. So we're going to delve into that a little bit. This year, specifically, we focused on a responsive intervention system, and part of that was driven by Act 139 legislation around early literacy and the science of reading. So I'll speak to that very briefly as well. And then, of course, the ends policies, knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed to become equity-minded global citizens. Those fall into the categories of academic achievement, learner agency, curiosity, adaptability, transferable skills, social, emotional, personal learning, and the associated literacies. So this is a brief history lesson on comprehensive programming at TNG schools. Prior to the pandemic, we really only had one common resource across all of our schools, and that was mystery science. That it was effective, continues to be in place. Whenever we bring it up for review, we get responses from teachers that they thoroughly enjoy it and use it regularly. Post-pandemic, we had access to some federal relief money. It became clear with interdistrict choice that aligning both vertically, meaning one grade to the next, and horizontally, meaning what happens at 3rd grade at MEMS is relatively what's happening at 3rd grade at Dorset. That was important for teacher sanity. And as students go through the grades from one grade to the next, the instructional models are beneficial to them, because the game of school, having to learn teacher-specific vocabulary, all of that is lifted when there's vertical alignment. And people can have a reasonable expectation about what was covered in the grade level before. So we introduced Reveal Math. This is year 3 of Reveal Math. Typically, we see results and impact of curriculum implementation 3 to 5 years down the road. So that's what this is designed to do. Again, moving forward, last year we looked at HMH, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, into reading and into literature for our middle school grades. That is a comprehensive literacy program. We also introduced Inquiry Ed, which is a social science program for all of our schools. And then, of course, A MIRA is an associated computer assessment that goes along with Into Reading, specifically focused on the science of reading as required by Act 139. And then this year, we looked at responsive classroom. This is not a content area in a traditional sense. It is more of an infrastructure to build community at our schools. We'll go into that on the second part of this presentation a little bit. And then the two programs you see on the bottom, last summer, these decisions were made. Bridges in Mathematics is a math intervention program that all of our interventionists across all of our schools utilize. And then UFly is a foundational skills intervention program. So if a student needs some additional support when it comes to phonics and language structures. So looking at that timeline, that's really quick to introduce all of this new professional learning. So I wanted to take a second to just acknowledge the immense amount of work that our teachers are doing. And not only that, I think our principals deserve some recognition for helping manage that. If you've ever been a part of an organization, organizational change comes hard. And we were kind of, I don't want to say the victims of circumstance, because it was a good circumstance in the sense that we had access to a federal fund. But that federal fund carried with it a timeline. So we needed to do this really swiftly. So with that, here's where I will probably actually have to look at my own screen. Here's where you see this, for those of you who've been here a while, this is a regular graph that you see. So these are the 5 levels of performance that are put out by iReady, which is our main instructional tool, assessment tool rather, that is norm referenced and used nationally. The first bar on each graph is the national norm group. This assessment was renormed in 22-23. That is the percentage of students at grade level. So the 2 green bars combined are considered at grade level. The yellow bar is considered 1 grade level below, then 2 below, and 3 below. So the first bar on the left is the norm group. The bar in the middle is the national year to date. It's around 10 million kids for both assessments. So currently, this is winter assessment data that wrapped up in early February. We are currently outpacing both the norm group and the national norm in both reading and math. Yes?
Did you share this with us? Didn't bring my binocs here. I can't see this at all.
Yes, it will be. It will be
I was also gonna ask,
added in the packet. Yes.
is it
Okay.
possible to close up the viewers on the side so that it's just your screen?
Up
Do
there.
either of you have access to
But
that?
that's.
On mine?
Yeah, I don't know. No, it might be. I have to get there.
I think it is up there, but
I
let me
don't
go see if I can
know.
find her. Well, we're gonna give you access to the whole thing, but
Okay.
Yeah.
you'll have it electronically.
So all of this is
Now,
point.
so we can follow along like on our own screens, or?
So this is legitimately the only data that we'll discuss.
Oh.
Like
In
in this graph. So that is performance data, that's point in time. So this is winter. So it's not end of year, it's not a year to year, it is a current present achievement data. So there's additional encouraging things happening when it comes to growth, including all of our students, including students with IEPs. So 46% of our students on IEPs have already made a year's worth of growth. And that is compared to only 45% of those students making a year's growth in a year's time. So currently our IEP students have made a year's growth in 2/3 of a year's time.
And those are students who qualify for special education
Yes.
services.
I'm sorry, I can't, is that reading or math or both?
That one is in reading.
Okay.
So before you go on, the 3 columns to the left, the
Yes,
first one farthest left is the national,
norm group.
and the middle one is year-to-date.
Yep.
For national, and then the next one is our.
Yes,
our
currently
local
are.
school.
Yep.
So the next 3, what do they represent?
So one is the one on the left is reading, and the first 3 on the left are reading, and then on the right it's math.
I see, thank you.
Again, this always happens when we share online.
With respect,
Yes, go ahead.
with respect to the math, math is taught in a sometimes different sequence. Is there a justification that perhaps the sequence in February and up to February was a little different than what the kids were actually tested in, or not?
Not typically. I mean, it's the same. We see the same trends kind of year over year.
Okay,
So there's nothing that would suggest that this is an anomaly.
thank you.
Yeah.
actually was just thinking it's interesting that it was just renormed. This is the first year we're seeing the renorming in that first column in each group. Up until that point, it was pre-pandemic levels.
Right.
So now that they renormed it, I'm surprised that the national year-to-date is not improving. So that's something for us to sort of look at.
Is the cognitive, do you compare this to the cognitive testing? Is that telling the same story here?
The challenge with Cognia is by the time we get the results, it's like rear view mirror versus windshield. And this is,
K-8.
yeah, this is K to 8 as well. And Cognia is only 3 to 8. So it's hard to do like a apples to apples comparison because they're significantly different by nature, realistically. One's adaptive beyond a grade level, and the other is adaptive within a grade level. So they're kind of different designs and designed for different purposes. When we did it initially, like it used to be that we would, when we had SBAC, right, there was a correlational study between the two assessments, and you could have a predictive measure of how a kid would score on SBAC. Because Cognia is new to us, that correlational study hasn't really happened. They don't have enough data points to do it because it's only a few years into Cognia.
Unfortunately, Cognia is not useful for us because we test like now, March, April. The results aren't public until like they got public the beginning of February. So there's no ability for us to use it to inform our work in any type of meaningful way. So when we're reporting out like growth and progress over the course of a year, we can't use that data. If that makes sense. It's just not something that has any, we don't have the ability to use it at the beginning of the year to inform our work. Plus it shouldn't be used that way, but that's I guess secondary to the topic.
So as I mentioned before, so that is it for in terms of academic data. If we're forecasting point in time from winter to spring, we are likely to land maybe slightly ahead of where we were last year. So in that zone of improvement, but I don't necessarily anticipate it being significant. Okay. So with regards to absenteeism, I know that is a concern that this board, whenever we do these types of presentations, is concerned about. So if you recall, in the fall, last year's percentage of students missing 30 plus days of school is 4% of kids across our schools. So instead of using the 30 number, I looked at 15 plus days of school this year, and those numbers were virtually identical as to where we were last year point in time. So it varied a little bit. Some schools had a few more kids that had missed 15 days, and others had missed a few less kids that had missed 15 days. So we're still trying to crack the nut of how to solve absenteeism. And I know that some of our principals might be able to speak to that a little bit later. Go ahead.
I know there was a fair amount of flu and stomach viruses this year.
Sure.
Did we break down that 15? Because many kids were sick for 10 days.
Yeah, it's due to sickness, it's due to people keeping their kids home more for sure, for a whole lot of reasons. For the purpose of looking at time that kids are in school to learn,
Right.
the reason doesn't necessarily matter for the purpose of, if they're not in school, they can't learn. Take care, see ya. But yeah, sickness, vacations still, we have kids who are still struggling to come to school. So there's a kind of a wide range of scenarios. I'm sure principals can talk more to that, but yeah.
So as I previously had mentioned, we had a team, actually all of the BRSC schools had people attend responsive classroom training this past summer at Manchester. That includes 31 staff at TNG schools. You can see that's kind of the 4 domains are positive community, developmentally responsive teaching, effective management, and then engaging academics. So this is kind of a framework that our schools use to establish community and provide students with voice and contribute to the learning environment that they engage with every day. So with that, we're going to transition into our ENT policies. So learner agency, curiosity, adaptability, transferable skills, social, emotional, and personal learning. So I will share with you that the remainder of this presentation is going to zoom in and out on things that are happening at all of our schools to varying degrees. And I would ask that if you do have questions about a particular event, that we maybe reserve those to the end and we can address the principals then, because they're likely going to be the best people because they're doing this remarkable work. Okay. So I know middle school, in terms of project-based learning, capstone, that type of thing, we talk about that here significantly more than maybe some of the things that happen in our elementary grades. So I'd like to just kind of get that out of the way and remind you all that we are continuing that work with project-based learning. However, we also have student councils. You see 3 members of the Floodbrook Student Council. They were actually featured in a write-up relatively recently that you could find on the Floodbrook website, including the bank. Is it in the banner as well?
It's in the journal.
The journal. The journal. Okay. And then in the center there, you see Manchester's Math Counts team. It's led by middle school math teacher Scott Diedrich. He also happens to be the BRC math department chair. Those folks went to a regional math counts competition where they won for the 3rd straight year. A number of those students qualified individually to compete in state level competitions as well, beyond regionals. And then you see some of the project-based learning stuff happening in the Dorset School. Okay. A key feature of our schools, as a result of a relationship we had with Jamil Adams, a consultant out of Massachusetts, our Love Inclusion Trust lit teams. This is not likely the first time you've heard of these. They're student-led groups. They engage in collaborative projects that positively embrace historically marginalized community members and explore diverse cultures. Manchester has a team that stands out. I would argue that it's likely our most robust lit team that typically is managed by Assistant Principal Nicole Weeks. She's phenomenal with this work. She has around 20 students, and it's comprised of diverse learners, kids who might not otherwise feel successful at school. And interestingly enough, it's intermediate grades. Grades 3 through 5 sees the most participation. They manage a school-wide newsletter. They present at monthly meetings. If you ever have the opportunity to talk to Ms. Weeks, she will share with you these students really shine in a public way. Whereas in the classroom, they might not necessarily volunteer to read aloud or be center stage. She says when it comes to school-wide meetings and they're in a gymnasium full of every student in the school, these kids just rise to the occasion and they don't second guess themselves. So it's really a cool experience for those kids. You can see Ms. Weeks is actually featured there with Mr. Schulman and the members of the lit team in front of Manchester's Unity Tree. So each student creates a leaf and posts it to the Unity Tree. This happened in the fall. Floodbrook also has a Unity Tree. You can see it's kind of interesting to see their comparisons. Again, it's microscopic photographs. So once you get access to the presentation, you can kind of see how it all comes together. In some of our other schools, some of our smaller schools, kind of with big school vibes, Sunderland also has a lit team that engaged in some letter writing to residents of Bromley Manor, and they visited during the holidays to decorate and carol, play games, so community connections. Courier, I had to include this picture when Ms. Perillo sent it to me. We have some cheerleaders at Courier who are, again, engaging in some of those larger school opportunities in our small communities and connecting with local veterans and delivering thank you cards. And then, of course, every school has a Harvest Fest. Dorset kind of kicks it up a notch. Something that's really exciting happening this week. It's like perfect timing. I love a good organizational meeting, but it's perfect timing. This Thursday, there's a community paint night at Manchester Elementary and Middle School. The lit team members have met with artists from Juniper Creative Arts to work on a mural to be designed and placed outside of Manchester Elementary. Every art class that has art at the school has designed a square to be featured on that mural. Students, parents, and staff are invited to attend the community paint night to help color the mural. And it is conveniently scheduled as a lead-in to the school concert. So you can have a men's night on Thursday.
So we invite you to join.
What time?
I think it's 3 to 5.
Yep.
And I also want to say that the NAACP contributed grant funds and is partnering with MEMS to create this mural at Juniper Creative. It is pretty amazing. If you have not seen their work, it's pretty remarkable and an amazing experience for our community. So if you can come and paint or watch and support, I encourage you to do so.
They just confirmed a design last week, but we've been led to tell you that if you'd like to see it, you should attend the community night.
Oops, did I miss part of the slide didn't load.
wow. Okay.
Show anyway, hold on, show anyway.
Oh, okay. So this is okay. We can deal with that. If you recall, last year our schools did a one district, one book, and that was The Wild Robot. And this fall, every student in BRSU schools went to the theater to see the movie. The message of belonging and community and embracing differences was a big message of that book. This year, different schools have elected to either participate in the one book, one school, or continue their maybe literacy traditions or practices during Literacy Month, which is March. So you can't see the cover, but I have copies up there for all of you. It's called Wish Tree by Catherine Applegate. Manchester has selected that as their one book, one school, as has Sunderland. Courier has selected the one and only Ivan, also by Catherine Applegate. That was recently made into a movie in the last couple of years. I know that because my children like to watch it. This Sunday, if you happen to be listening to EQX between 11 and 12, Principal Schulman, Jessica Kuzmic, the ELA department chair, and a group of Manchester students were on for the hour. And it was remarkable to listen to them talk about reading and their favorite books. That recording is available if you go on the EQX website. They were on the Sunday Brunch with Joy.
And it was shared with all of you.
Yeah. Oh, right. I
By
forgot
Bob
that came out. Yep. So how might kids engage in these projects, or how might they turn it into a project, right? MEMS has a literacy dinner, which is going to be larger than it was last year, and last year saw probably 400 participants. But in terms of connections to the curriculum and what's happening in the classroom, and you'll hear about this on the Sunday brunch, is MEMS students and MEMS classes are going to become experts in specific types of trees, and they're going to do research and report out. Sunderland, you're actually getting a red oak tree, which I think is a really cool kind of making learning come alive. Courier, because the one and only Ivan is themed around animal rights, they're going to be connecting with a local animal shelter. And then, as I mentioned before, not every school is elected to do the one book thing. I know that Floodbrook has March Book Madness happening. So, of course, we need to make sure that students have outdoor learning opportunities, embracing the ecology of Vermont. So students have visited BBA Mountain Campus. There's longer term retreats happening in some of our older grades, middle school grades, taking multiple days to do community building outside. There's also Trout in the Classroom is present, I believe, at Dorset as well. Students at Dorset were working on some long trail maintenance as well, so applied community service. Floodbrook has always been the outdoor space place. It's interesting because that remains to be true, like that's still continuing. But we do have a kindergarten teacher at Sunderland who is exploring outdoor learning for some of our youngest learners in kindergarten and pre-K. So,
I think, did you have a two-headed trout? Am I right about that?
that was it.
We did last year.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
We have a trout in the classic going on every year too.
Yeah, I think there's
So
a
we got
few.
it.
We had a two-headed trout a couple of years ago.
Love our trout.
We had, yeah.
Okay. Some pictures.
We have lots of
Yes,
two-headed
they
trout
call
here.
Really?
Here in BRSU.
Apparently.
They don't usually survive, do they?
It's,
I don't know.
well, you can,
You can see them.
natural selection.
It's a lesson to be learned.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, community connections, we're fortunate to live in a space where, although, particularly that last one, the SUNY Albany Drone Lab isn't kind of geographically close, we do have some great opportunities to connect with community resources, and you can see them listed there. The first trip to SUNY Albany Drone Lab, again, Scott Dietrich, our math department chair, is going to be taking 8th graders there. And it's where the entire New York State NOAA weather station operates from. I went because I chaperoned a field trip for my daughter. it really is remarkable, learning opportunities, hands-on, and kids will be interested in it because it's not sit and get learning. And then of course, this was year 2 of every student participates in GISP. There were a variety of opportunities. Obviously, skiing is a big one. There was Riley Rink. There were some school-based theater programs, cross-country skiing at Wild Wings. There were some art opportunities as well. And I will leave you with that. So if you have questions for any of those school-based programs, our principals are here.
Any discussion?
Can I ask a question? I remember in years past, you, I don't know if individual schools or possibly you were measuring a sense of school belonging. Are you guys still doing that, and are you using the same metrics, and is that, are you seeing growth in that area?
Yeah, so this is year 2 that we use the DESA, the Devereaux Student, the acronym escapes me right now, but yeah, so we are continuing. Last year there was a little bit limited implementation. It was happening in some places, not as consistently as we would have liked. This year so it would happen at some schools but not others, or the timeframes would be different. So comparing point to point for this year hasn't been great, but we are way more consistent. We're doing it 3 times a year, just as we do with our academic testing. So
is
we
that
have
administered by on the teachers?
Yes, yeah.
And
So
students?
up until 6th grade, it is a questionnaire that a teacher fills out. So just like we do that kind of near conference time or near report card time, so you're really considering the student as a whole child. And we don't have enough data that's taken consistently to compare kind of one year to the next. But I will tell you, from fall to winter, we did see improvement in terms of the number of students as the scale that it uses is would benefit from instruction. There's been a reduction of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay, thanks for sharing all of that, and it's great to see some of those specific examples of different things that are happening in different schools. I'm curious, one of the things that we, I think we're dealing with across the state, but it's like in our district is sort of like, how do we make sure that kids in one school are getting comparably similar degrees of opportunity as kids in other schools? And I'm just curious, as we think about the realities of possibly needing to reconfigure where our school students are to try to balance that, what's your sense as principals of, I heard Scott Dietrich's name several times, and I've got kids that are interested in math and science, and they go to Floodbrook and they don't get that. So is that or they haven't had those sorts of opportunities? I'm curious what your sense is as principals, as how are we doing? In terms of providing more equal opportunities. Are we making improvements? I mean, I know that our schools are different and those realities are going to be different, but are we getting better at providing more equal opportunities for students across the district, or are we still, is it just really still too tough? I don't know.
I think the alignment from our schools is at a point that's an all-time high. I think it's been incredible. I do think that we have to lean into the physical surroundings of the community that we reside in, because there's some of it is just a matter of where you are as far as what you have immediate access to. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier for me to have kids going up and down the mountain for a bunch of small group work at the Smoky House than it would be for Sunderland, as an example. But I think that being in a school that might have higher poverty, for example, we personally feel the support and feel like we are being well cared for. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah.
I think particularly with smaller schools, it's always going to be dependent on the staff that you have. If you have an art or music teacher who's really interested in theater, then you're gonna have a theater program. If you don't, it's not something that you can say, well, you teach music, so you have to put on a play. You know, that's always a challenge.
I'll add that the consistency of curriculum has been powerful, but also, there's been a lot done in more recent years about, so enrichment funds, making sure that they're per pupil, and so that the schools are seeing an equitable amount of fundings to get children outside the school and outside the classroom. And, I feel like that has been transparent between us for 3-4 years, and has really increased the ability to make sure that we are getting those opportunities across all classes.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Skylar or Nicholas? Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Like, I'm curious what principals have to say about this. Yeah, I don't know if you were able to answer, but if federal funding were shut off tomorrow, who and how do you think would be impacted? Where would you see the direct effects, and what would be?
Well,
How do we guard ourselves for such a likelihood?
Our Title I schools.
I'll take a stab at it. So, I mean, for the rest of the school year, we'd probably be, I'm assuming, fine. However, I shouldn't assume anything at the moment regarding funding and the Department of Education, half of which just got shuttered while we've been preparing for this meeting earlier today, right? So, our Title I positions, right? So, in my school, at MEMS, the school that I'm leading and working with my staff, that are academic interventionists. Like, I really think about them. It's instructional coaches, which really all support children. And for our academic interventionists, we've been putting in, at MEMS, so much emphasis in our multi-tiered system of supports and making sure that our students who are they're just, they need that extra support, right, are getting it, and that's with our academic interventionists. So if Title I funds kind of disappear, or it's more challenging for the Agency of Education to dole them out, and then with Skylar and Sue and Randy and us all working together to get them, it's going to be tremendously awful for everyone, but in particular, those kids that really might need only 4 to 6 weeks of honest to goodness small group work, and then they can move away from an EST or an educational support team plan, right? Which means they could just start, the gaps can grow larger, John, and it frankly would suck. So, I don't really know how else to say it. It's really frustrating for me to even consider. I was talking with Skylar about this yesterday. It's frustrating for me to even consider that after all the work and all the emphasis that at MEMS we put into this. And it's frankly very disappointing and scary for kids. And for teachers too, who've really leaned in. We've had teachers this year who, they were a first grade teacher and a kindergarten teacher, and they interviewed and they got those positions, and they have leaned in so hard and are crushing it by every metric. They're doing so well. And the fact that those positions may not be around is.
What do you see, I'm sorry, Mel,
Yeah.
follow. What do you see, is there anyone, as the board's role in preparing our schools for this possibility of the tap being turned off?
I don't know, making sure we can fund those positions as long as possible, but again, it's beyond me. I'm not sure. Do y'all have any takes on that? Title I friends?
I wouldn't even know where to begin to start.
I do.
Control and.
It's staffing and budgeting. So the indicators right now are, even if it is horrible right now, funds there, we should be relatively okay for next year. But it would, without a shadow of a doubt, require us to consolidate, hands down. establish minimum school sizes, class sizes, so that we can provide the supports that we need to. We wouldn't have some of the flexibility we do right now. But that is what I would be bringing to you as a board, is a plan, a governance plan and a funding plan to be as efficient and lean as possible, to have the least impact on learning as possible. And there would likely still be increases to the budget, but I would confirm for you that we would be as efficient as possible. There wouldn't be a single class, K-3 under 15 students. They'd probably mostly be at 18. And we would have all of our 4 through 8 between 20 and 24, period. And then we go from there.
Can you say more about that?
There would be
no way we could, in order to fund within our budget,
correct.
what is currently being funded from the federal government?
In order to provide the best education we can for our kids, with a significant reduction in funds for intervention, coaching, and special education.
Okay.
There's no other way. We cannot operate with 5 schools that were already under enrolled and have class sizes that are, not necessarily at those minimum levels. So that's where we would start.
Our budget, our revenues is federal. Am I able to see that? Can I pinpoint that by line item by line item?
No, because your budget, the budget is your local budget. You
Not the BRC.
you don't see the grant funds directly in your budget. How much, what's our CFP right now? We can certainly send it all to you.
I know it kind of specifically by title. In terms of funding positions, Title I is the...
Yeah. What's our Title I grant right now?
I know in terms of positions, in terms of a dollar amount,
Okay, so if the board wants that, we can certainly get you Title I, Title II, Sue on there?
Sue will know, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, go ahead.
Title I.
Let's do all of them, just so they know. Title I, which is most instructional support.
That's like $1 million.
And Title II, which is like professional development training.
It's a couple hundred and change.
Title III is ELL.
Yeah, that's
small.
It's immaterial.
Title IV is social emotional.
Yeah, and that's gonna be under a couple hundred.
Under a couple hundred.
Yeah.
Title VI, IDA.
There's IDA, again, you were talking about probably between 700,000 and 800,000. And all of this is in the BRSU budget. So all of our grants are spelled out in the BRSU budget, so you can see that in the agendas for the BRSU board for what the BRSU votes on.
In the revenue side.
The expenditure side too, right.
Okay.
We have a section on grants and it's spelled out, which grants are paying for what. So the special ed budget is where you're gonna see the IDEA funds covering part of the special ed expenses, and then the BRSU general budget has a section for grants. So you're talking about, over $2 million in total. Yeah, Randy, we haven't heard anything about IDA, right?
No, we haven't heard anything about Title I yet either. We're speculating. Medicaid also, how much, and that's based on what we generate with Medicaid. If that were to end.
Oh, if that were to end, yeah, then, then we're down a couple 100,000 there as well, yeah. It's a lot of positions.
Right.
This is, you add up all the positions that we have in the grants. I just put those certs out today. 11, 12, 13 positions, it's a lot of positions. When you throw Medicaid, IDEA in there, it's a lot.
Did you want to add something to that? Did you want to say something then?
I mean, we're veering off.
We are.
We're veering off subject, so I will, it's just like, the ramifications keep going. You said we would have to, increase our class sizes and all the rest of it, but, the cost to do that is also astronomical. Like, to move all of our students into one building, to renovate the buildings, to build new buildings, to accommodate a school size of 300 or 400 elementary students and then middle school, like, these are things we're contemplating, but it's not without costs, like, so it's like, these are, it all is gonna come with a big price tag.
We'll keep monitoring it. I told Meadowy I'm monitoring it very, very closely, and we'll stay on top of things. And right now, everything's speculative, and every day it changes, so
Yeah, if we don't have anything to do in a future meeting, you know, I'd be really interested to have this as an agenda item to just, not that Sue or Randy or whomever needs to create too much, but I feel like I need to get more well versed on what the rest be thinking about, you know, how federally funded are we? I know we just got the ballparks, but just be thinking, well, okay, preparing for the worst.
If there is no further discussion, I guess thank you principals for coming. And thank you Skylar for your presentation.
Feel free to leave, it's been a long day.
I'll move on to executive limitations, school goals update. Randy, I'm gonna assume that's you.
Oh, I don't know why it's on there twice.
Yeah, I didn't
It's
know
not
if there was
supposed to be
something
there.
else.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's
Okay.
not supposed to be, we're not doing that again.
All right, great. I didn't know if you had something separate that was yours that was not me.
No.
Thank
Thank you.
Next item, survey results for policy 2.6. Herb, do you want to speak to this since you, I'm assuming, kind of pull that information together?
Actually, I didn't.
Okay.
Usually Celeste does
Yeah, I think
Celeste
Celeste
does,
does that.
okay. Any discussion on those minutes, on those results, I'm sorry?
I thought the comments were germane, expressing some areas of plausible improvement. We continue to summarize all of the comments that are offered so that the board is aware that there are some members who feel that it's not a 5, and that there's areas for improvement. When I read it, I don't really feel as though there is a large consensus on revising any of the policies at this particular point. But maybe I'm hopeful that we're not adding to the 4.
Any follow-up on Dick's sentiments?
Not follow up, but
Go ahead.
also on this topic. I would just, as we present these in the agenda or the board packet, it would be helpful if we put this policy language on here.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to do that, but she forgot.
Yeah, I just, I had to sort of rack my brain, what exactly was that?
Yeah. I think
I still found the comments helpful and went through it and all the rest of it, but it'd be easier if I didn't have to search for policy.
Yep, that's
Thanks.
supposed to be there. I would just also comment, I wanted to just clarify, and I'm happy to talk to whoever wrote this, but the needs of the buildings, I would say are not due to insufficient ongoing maintenance. The maintenance of our buildings is actually very, very good, and they continue to depreciate and continue to have needs. We have a building maintenance reserve. We do extensive work every summer and throughout the school year, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that the needs of the buildings, from my perspective, are not due to insufficient maintenance. We actually do a really good job. So if whoever wants to talk through that with me, I'm happy to talk more.
Jim, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah, no, just wanted to make a suggestion. The policy committee, whenever they get together, if they could just kind of look at all of these reviews since their last meeting and look at them from the perspective of, because there are often some decent comments in here. And I think, it's worth our while to kind of figure out whether or not we should be tweaking, some of these a little bit, or, potentially present to the board the idea of tweaking some of those policies based upon the comments.
That was the mandate of the board back in February.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a great suggestion.
I'll have it duplicative, okay.
Do we feel that the board wants to charge the policy committee with doing that, or is that whenever?
What you need to do is basically renew the charge that was the board voted on in February
Has the
And
policy committee not met since?
It's not
Correct.
met.
Thank you, okay.
So
So that answers my question.
may I suggest that I would make a motion that the policy committee be charged with precisely the objectives that were agreed to by the board in February.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that?
And then we'll get to it.
Great. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Thank you, passes. Distribution, monthly update from the superintendent. Randy, would you like to speak to that?
Well, next week we're gonna talk through things. I'm happy to answer any questions. I feel like I was
Is it possible at the meeting, because when we line up at MEMS, I can't see beyond 3 people on either side of me, that we put the tables a little bit in a,
Yeah, so we're gonna be in the gym,
right,
and at the front, the tables will be near the stage. I have it set up so the board will be in a U,
that's great, thank you.
and facing the back. There'll be a panel like this on one side for virtual folks. There'll be an area over on this side for architects and me, and then there'll be the audience out there. So I think that way when the board talks, you'll be facing each other.
And another suggestion that came up is, have we warned this particular meeting yet, so that the public would know that it is happening, where it's happening, what time it's happening, and a rough sense of when the public would have an opportunity to participate. I know the architects are speaking, the board has some decisions to make.
Yes.
There has to be discussion among the board, but obviously we need to have the opportunity for the public to interact after they've heard a little bit of where the board might be going.
Yep, the agenda's all set up that way. And
Can it be published?
Yes. Yeah, we are continuing to tweak the options, and I wanted to get the options out with the packet. The agenda, I think, is going out tomorrow. The packet will go out either Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. And Bob, we got a press release. We sent a letter to families and to anybody who signed up from the public who wanted access to information. We've got a flyer, we've got a social media plan, so everything is, when did the press release go out?
Well, the journal has a story tomorrow morning.
Okay, so yeah, it's all
And then
in the
we'll start
works.
spreading that.
And the agenda is written so that it's got specific times that we developed with the architects and an order of operations, which I'll go over with Mel so that she can facilitate that.
Is it possible that the board can vote some funds for a babysitting or care for 3-year-olds and up, so that people can actually attend the meeting in person? Obviously, they can attend by link.
Yeah, so the problem we have with that is that, no, it's, we found some kids for the annual meeting, but to pay people to do that, we have to hire them, which is frankly, from my perspective, really difficult unless we have people who are already employees of some capacity. I'm just not really willing to put a high school kid through a background check and get on whatever all the things Sue would need us to do to hire somebody. So, sometimes kids will do it for service hours, but I don't think the issue necessarily is, the money in the budget as much as the logistics of trying to hire somebody, unless somebody wants to volunteer to do it, or we pay them, which is what.
Maddie?
I know a bunch of kids are looking for success points who want to go on the trip, so I can put it out to them and be like, and ask Jason and Billy if they want to offer success points or service hours or something.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone will say yes, but I know that we have until Christmas to get 125, so a bunch of kids need to jump
So
on
let's
it.
talk and I'll give you the details.
Yeah.
If we, in the future, if we have a meeting that's designed to do something like the one next week, that's, you know, unusual, I would like to see us at least 2 weeks ahead of time, even more, just get a general notice about what it's going to be about. Because people do make their plans sometimes weeks in advance, and I think it's really important to get notice of something like this out, so people put it on their calendar, then they can wait till they see what the details are. Maybe they decide, oh, I don't need to go to that after all. We really need to have more advance notice than we had on this one.
I agree. I think one of the goals, I read somewhere, I've been doing a lot of reading lately, one of the goals was saying that we want to be proactive with social engagement, and I think we can do better than what we've been doing, so I agree that we should have at least 2 weeks notice in the community and with families.
Yeah, and that's, I appreciate the feedback. It was 12 days and I was trying to wait until after the election, which, just to not conflate a whole lot of things, so, but I appreciate the feedback.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay. Thank you, Randy, for that thoughtful and caring and thorough letter. Governance process, I think I need to take a motion to accept Deb's letter of resignation.
I move to accept the letter of resignation with awesome sadness.
Seconded.
Discussion?
Oh, so sad.
Vote against it.
I don't get a vote.
And also, as part of the motion, to advertise the open position so that it can be applied for in a reasonable amount of time and potentially voted on by our April meeting. Both are part of the motion.
I just want to say thanks. It's been wonderful. I'll really miss you. It's been good, and I'm really grateful that Rogan, who's here tonight online, and he step in, and it's really good. He went to Floodbrook. He has kids at Floodbrook, and that's perfect. I think that's great. Thank you, Rogan. And thank you all.
Deb, thank you for
Thanks, Deb.
staying as long as you did. I know you wanted to. You had plans that, went way back.
And I'm sorry I can't be there today. I'm on Grammy duty in Massachusetts.
Any other discussion? All in favor of accepting Deb Linus's letter of resignation? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? Passes. I assume this is just a discussion item, reflection on the annual meeting and election.
It is a discussion item.
Any?
I would like to thank the public for basically passing all of what we warned and agreeing that we were reasonable and appropriate in the monies that we assigned. I would also like to thank all 5 of the at-large, non-town specific, 4-town specific candidates. I think that it is clear in today's world that education counts, and I'd like to welcome Kelsey in particular, because David, Herb, and I had the wonderful opportunity of learning a lot more about her qualifications, and I think you're going to be terrific.
I'd like to thank Alex for his service. He was a good addition to the team, and we'll miss him, or you'll miss him.
Yes.
Go ahead, Herb.
One thing that intrigued me, I think this is the first time that there were actually more votes in favor of the overall budget than there were in favor of the BBA
Notice that.
item.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether that may have something to do with our pointing out that BBA's increase was a good deal more than ours was.
It was also interesting, though, that Mark Tasha made quite the point of recognizing, and I know we got letters at the school saying, by approving the BRSU budget and the TNG budget, it was a sign of support for also BEA. So I think the working together in tandem was helpful in general. Any other discussion on the annual meeting? Okay. Next item, student representative process to begin.
And it's just notifying you of that.
Okay.
We'll start at the end, usually we do it, around in April.
Mhm.
So we'll be looking for another representative. Gonna continue for another year? Phew. So we'll be looking for one more to replace Oliver, graduating.
Lindsay?
I really would like to put on a future agenda item some sort of description for student reps. Because I haven't seen Oliver, I think, in a year. And he gets paid. And I still think it's not acceptable. So I don't know how, if we can do it before the new rep is voted in or whatnot. I don't know when they get voted in, if it's next school year or if it's before the end of the school year, the student rep.
Yeah, they're voted in this, like usually June is when you do it.
So is there any way, I know we have busy agendas, if we can add it in maybe before?
Yeah, if we're starting the process coming up in April, I would assume. Do we have, what, Herb?
I wasn't answering your question, so go ahead.
Yeah, we must have a description that exists, right?
Yeah.
Are you thinking that you would like to put it on as a discussion so we could review it before we were to
Review,
move forward?
update it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Policy committee or full board?
It's not a policy.
Okay. It's a full board.
Policy? No,
I
it's
just
the board
double
that
checking.
does this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I just said. She
Yeah.
just asked if it was a policy. I said no.
But there was a policy item. If you look on packet page 8, remember last meeting, we had a discussion about student representative attendance, and then we said, wait a minute here, does it make sense to require student members to attend a certain number of meetings if we don't require the board elected members to attend the same? And there was a motion to ask the policy committee to consider whether board members must attend a certain number of meetings, and that passed, so that's another thing for the policy committee.
That's part of
The board online, it does say like what the participation or attendance is for the board members. I don't know if it has it for the student reps, but it does. You can look up and see how often you're at the meetings.
The policy, there's a policy around it, that's what you're saying, or?
But I know you can go onto the BRSU website and I can look up every single one of you and how often you've attended meetings.
Oh, but you're not saying that there's
But
a
for
policy that says how many we have
Yeah.
to, just what our attendance is?
Yeah, but I
see.
don't think the student reps are included, obviously. in
Okay.
that. I'm not positive though, but I don't recall it.
It has been the practice that if someone is not here, that after a couple of meetings, without any explanation, the chair has been designated by the chair to go and talk and get some explanation of what's going on. In some cases, it's tied to an illness. In some cases, it's tied to other issues that are important. And it's at that point that the chair has the option to say, look, you've been voted in, we need your input. Please make every effort to be here.
So Dick, to be clear, understand that this will come up at the policy committee meeting. that's happening, right?
But I think that was only a policy of attendance, not, maybe a participation type. Because I know, I think John has mentioned a couple times, maybe having them do a year-end project or something like that. So that was my thing, not necessarily like them having, or us all having to come in a certain amount of time.
Okay. Cool. Any other discussion on that? I guess. Oh, yeah.
Like, while we're on this topic, I know we're gonna talk about it more next month, but is this type of thing, like, last year, I know when I, like, applied, you gave a presentation at Assembly, like, is this something I should, like, put my mind on right now?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Sounds good.
And we can talk.
Okay.
No other discussion, we'll move on to the next item. I had brought this up at our last meeting, this is discussion around resident of Sunderland sitting at the table, and engaging in discussion with the board, but not vote. I'll just present it as that, I think you all heard me then. And to, I guess, avoid a conflict, I'll ask if there's any discussion from the table around that, if you all understood my intent. But I don't think I need to lead the discussion.
I personally am a little concerned that the establishes on any particular issue, and I understand the issue of representation and voices being heard, but of having someone participate at a board level discussion where I think on this particular issue there will be a substantial opportunity for all of the public to weigh in. And I think this is a very important issue, and I understand the logic of trying to get people engaged and involved and part of the discussion. But I think it sets an unusual, perhaps even unique precedent going forward. Now, if it's a unique precedent, then we can call it a unique precedent, and other factors may weigh into it. But I'm concerned about the precedent. I understand the logic behind the suggestion, but I think the chair has the capacity to recognize individuals in the section specifically reserved for the public to weigh in.
John?
Yeah, I'll just say, I see the sentiment, the intent, and I'm willing to keep an open mind, but currently I'm opposed to it, and I think it's unnecessary.
I agree with John and Dick. I think that if there was an issue that was unique to one particular town or one particular school, there might be a time when the chair might want to invite somebody to come speak to the whole board about that particular issue. I don't like the idea of having somebody who's just routinely given a seat at the table, even though they weren't elected and they weren't a student rep either.
Any other comments, thoughts, discussions? Yeah.
I would like to hear, without putting you on the spot, but I'd like to hear just an alternative suggestion. I think the way, so let me backpedal a little bit. I think the way the whole structure was created was to balance out some kind of representation or understanding. I want to say the right words here because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But some kind of understanding so that proportionately every person across the whole supervisory union is represented. And so we have the at-large people and we have the other designated people. And then in addition to that, we have public comment and all the rest. And then we've also had meetings like a forum and stuff when we realized that we really needed to be closer to one particular community or another to get their attendance and to get their feedback. If that's not sufficient, yeah, I guess I need to be convinced that that isn't doing the job.
I guess since even if there was a motion, I wouldn't be voting on this necessarily. If it's okay, I'll go ahead and speak kind of to my thought, just to kind of answer that. I think one of the reasons that this came up for me is because of the at-large districts. I recently had taken a look at the numbers, and Sunderland is not that much smaller than our smallest at-large town. So they're very, very close. So because we haven't necessarily updated the numbers or looked at the populations and recognized the change there, I thought it was an opportunity to maybe reconsider. And the second concern and why I wanted to talk about this was because of the fact that when we're talking about schools, not just communities, each school within our district is represented by at least 2, if not 3 or 4 people at this table. And the Sunderland School does not have anyone else speaking for it specifically that has that community tied to that school. And when we're looking at items around consolidation and making decisions for those children, mind you, the decisions may be limited and there may not be much to discuss. Having a community member that is specifically from that school can speak more to or at least can add to the conversation around the climate and the culture in that school, rather than just the one person, when the other schools have that opportunity. So that was my feeling around that. I might also be, I would actually say I'm also slightly sensitive to it now that I'm sitting in this role, where I will be much more measured in how I'm participating in these discussions around this. But if I can comment, I appreciate the opportunity or the presentation of the option to maybe invite Sunderland School community members to the table when we get down to those hard discussions as to where and how we address reconfiguring Sunderland students' education patterns and where they go. Does that at least answer your question?
Very well, thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Okay. Next item on the agenda is motion to designate public high schools as proposed by her at our last meeting. We've tabled this, I believe. So now would be the meeting that we bring this up, and if there is a motion to discuss it, we can discuss it, and if there's no motion, that I believe that it fails as is. Do you want
I'll move to take it off the table.
Okay. Does anybody want to second that motion? Lindsay? Any discussion on that? All those in favor of taking the designation questions?
If you take it off the table, Claire, that means it's now active again?
Yes.
Or it's not active?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. I misunderstood that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So take it off the table, make it active. Okay?
So do you still want to second it?
Oh, no one else was, so.
Is that a yes to seconding, taking it off the table?
I don't know.
That means we're going to a vote.
Yeah, so I
That
think
means we go to
maybe
discussion
explain,
and a vote.
maybe
Okay.
explain it so that all board members understand what's happening.
Were we waiting on information though, too?
Yes,
I thought you were reaching out to a lawyer.
Right.
There were a bunch of requests for additional
wasn't a discussion.
information.
Herb?
As far as the effect of it, if you take a motion off the table, then it's back under discussion. If the motion to take it off the table passes in the first place, then it's back on discussion, and it could be passed or it could be voted down. If something stays on the table for more than one regular meeting, then it just automatically dies. That's not to say that somebody at a future meeting can't make the same motion all over again. It's just there's no way to to bring back the original one.
So, to be clear, Herb made a motion to take it off the table so that it is open for discussion.
And a vote.
Which would
Potentially a
also, yes, which should lead us to a vote. Is there a second? I don't see a second, so I assume that means also there's no discussion and your motion
Stays on, dies.
Stays on.
dies, right?
It
Yes.
stays on the
Dies
table.
on the table.
It does not stand
It
the table.
dies.
It
It
dies,
dies.
yeah. Doesn't
It
even
will
stay
not
on the
move
table.
forward.
But we can bring it back later if we need.
Anytime.
Right. Thank you, Herb. That was a valiant effort. Work plan. This is just a distribution item. Is there anything that anyone would like to add to the work plan? Herb?
On policy adoption, should the work, it's about 5 columns over, should the work plan include some proposal by the policy committee on the issues we just discussed earlier today?
The intent, if we can, is to meet before April 1st and make it a part of the agenda with suggestions. Then the procedure would be that we could, I never can remember, adopt, and then at a subsequent meeting, which can offer additional revisions. The other word.
Approve?
Approve. So it goes adopt in one meeting, which gives the public enough time, if they choose to comment, and the board to think hard about making it part of the policy. And if we approve it, then it becomes part of the policy. So the adopt is really a way station to let the board really understand
So,
what the changes are.
Herb?
Actually, the sequence is first it's approved, then it's adopted.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So, can you say again, is there a suggestion to change something specifically? Did you get that?
Yeah, but I would just recommend that we let the policy committee meet, and then when they have something, it'll get on the agenda for approval at the following meeting. I think that's typically how we do it. We don't usually, on the work plan, lock the policy committee into making a decision by a certain point.
We're going to do the best we can. We obviously didn't meet in November, haven't yet met, but
Yeah,
our intention is to gather together and try and come up with something that appeases everybody.
So no other suggestions, though? Yes?
We will be bringing, I think probably at the April meeting, a new required policy for your approval. It's a bullet, behavioral threat assessment that's a requirement.
So that will be added?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the monitoring policy 4.2 for the April meeting. That I believe is in the agenda packet. If folks want to look through it there. And Celeste is not on here, but I think it is the practice now that the policy is included in the form when it comes out, correct?
Yes.
So that we can read through
It's
it.
supposed to be in here too, so sorry about that. We'll talk about
I
it.
thought it was me, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, it is. This is here, but I just meant when we review it.
Right.
But we'll make sure it gets in.
Great. Update regarding legislation and the VSBA. Jim. Would you like to speak to that?
Okay, well, there was the write-up in the package. Also yesterday, each of you should have received an email from the VSBA, which was a very good job of a legislative update to a little more current than ours. Basically, if you want the sort of best up to date that I have anyway, it's the legislative update from the VSBA yesterday. We really went through pointing out the the draft bill that came out from the governor's office, that it, 3 days later landed as a real bill that has a number on it, H454. One of the tricky things, I actually spent way too much time looking at, they had the draft bill that came out, and then the new one came out that was almost 20 pages longer. And so went through the painful process of determining that the extra 20 pages was all language that they added and then struck out. So basically, the proposal hasn't changed too much from the first draft. But they have, in the email from the VSBA, they cover some useful things, such as, looking at things, what are, the school choice schools versus not approved schools now, or, whatever. It does a good job of explaining some of the key elements of it, including that on school choice then, it really is just looking at grades 9 to 12 and any schools to be determined to be a school choice school under that policy or under that bill would be required to have a majority of the kids coming from being paid for by public tuition dollars. There are a bunch of other points in there that are described pretty well, including the breakup of, in a very different way, of the responsibilities between the State Board of Education and the Agency of Education. I think that, at this point, I think it's yet to be determined, unless somebody knows better than I. The House Ed Committee still has their bill that's alive. There's H454 now from the governor. Either one, I think it's sort of in the House Ed's hands to decide if they just want to take up H454 or add things from that to their bill. Also, I do expect that Senator Bongartz's proposals will get an airing, but I don't know exactly. It's a very different approach to dealing with independent schools. That's likely to get some airing, but at this point, I think there are a lot of balls in the air. I'm trying to give you guys all the information that we kind of need to be able to respond and understand how we might need to get our voices heard. But I really, unless, I don't know, Randy, you may know better than me, but I don't think we know where things are going tomorrow.
No.
So I think it's
Yeah.
really important, though, that we all be up to speed, because if it's going in a direction that would significantly impact the way we operate, we need to be, everybody needs to be sufficiently up to date so that we can make some quick decisions on how we can potentially protect our local system. It's also, I do want to say that fits in very well with, I think I'm extremely pleased that Randy's going forward with presenting the options for the Taconic and Green. I think that will play very well as far as, I think our districts have been doing all of the things this legislation is really asking for. And the next step in that is the reconfiguration of some of our, the way we provide education in the area, which I think we are the best people as a district and as set up communities to determine what would be best for our kids. And our presenting that at this point, I think puts us in a very good position to argue that we understand what's best for our kids and what's needed to get spending under control. And we've been, walking the walk as well as, doing the talk for a while. We've been producing. So I think we need to be prepared to act in a strong way. Randy's already done some testimony in the legislature. If things are going off track, I expect that several of us, we should be prepared to tell our story in Montpelier. That's it. Happy to take questions.
Seeing no questions. Thank you, Jim, for that update. And I guess, Kelsey, have you signed up for the VSBA legislative updates yet?
No, not yet, I will do
Okay.
that. Put on my to-do list, there's been a lot last couple of days.
Yeah, I imagine. But Jim is right, there's a lot of information in there.
Yes. And there is a policy governance training, May 2nd, I think, for new board members. It's a full day training. So if you have not attended a policy governance training, I really recommend you attend. I'm advocating for it to be in Rutland. I think I've made some headway on that, versus Montpelier.
Who is presenting that?
Debbie.
Okay.
What's her,
Yeah.
Singeiser, thank you.
So it's VSBA.
So I had told her that we were meeting. I didn't know who our board chair would be. We were doing reorganization. I'd let them know. So, I think I'm looking actually at all. I guess it's probably premature, Rogan, for you. No, maybe in May. If it's in May, so maybe just put that on. I'll forward email to you and maybe connect with Jessica, Kelsey, and Rogan. I think it's the 2nd, but I'll confirm the date. But I just wanted to mention that. If anybody else would like to attend, let me know.
I'm assuming that's
I think it's a Saturday. So I might be wrong on the day if...
I see it as May 2nd is a Friday.
Okay, so I might be wrong, but I'm not going to look it up right now because I'm not great at that when during the day. I'll forward you the information.
Thank you.
Future agenda items.
Oh, Jim, you got it, right? Jim, you're on the email with me? I think it's you and me,
Yep,
right?
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, I was like, who else was on that? Okay.
One would be to appoint a replacement for Deb.
Yes.
Who I hope is on the screen right now.
I think I submitted that letter on that day purposely so that we have 30 days to post the position or whatever, and that Rogan could be elected or appointed at the next meeting. I looked into all the legal ins and outs, and that's what we decided to do.
Can I ask a question about that?
Randy, it's Saturday, May 3rd.
Saturday, May 3rd.
Does the new board training happen before or after they are elected? For instance,
I guess that's a question for the VSBA.
Okay. Look that up. Dick?
Usually, everybody goes, and almost everybody here has come to the board training that the officers have traditionally given. We try and go through stuff and open the door for additional training or questions to be answered. So the SBA is one place you can do a lot of stuff, but
I guess my question to Herb, since we've had other appointees before, I just want to make sure they have to get voted in first before they go through the training.
Yes.
That you guys would have traditionally given.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Back to the agenda items. I wrote down agenda items. You wanted to see information about our federal funding. John, policy language with each review. Actually, that's not an agenda item. Discussion on student reps is also an agenda item, and then appointment for Deb. Replacement for Deb. Was there anything else? No. Okay. The next meeting dates are set for March 17th at 7 p.m. Men's Gym. Again, that is going to be discussion with Randy and Trix Collins. and open to the public. I encourage everyone to come. This will be a busy night. And after that will be April 1st at the Dorset School. I assume at 6:30 as per usual. Last public comment for the night. Seeing no public other than Bob, unless you have anything you want to add.
Rogan?
Rogan? Thank you. Anybody like to make a motion for item 13? Dick?
Item 13, I move that we go into executive session under 1 VSA, paragraph 313A1F, upon specific finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage, which is one of the 6 or so specific things, confidential attorney-client communications, and invite to that session our superintendent.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, go into executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.